We'll call the meeting to order for the Minot City Council for today, Monday, June 21st, 2021. It is 5:30 in the afternoon. I want to thank everyone for attending the meeting, both in person and those that are watching via social media. If I could ask that anyone in attendance go ahead and put your electronic devices on silent or vibrate, and we'll keep the distractions down to a minimum. Roll call, please.
Evans? Here. Janser?
Here.
Olson? Here. Pittner?
Here.
Padragula?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Sitma?
Here. Number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 3 on our agenda this afternoon is the city manager's report. Mr. City Manager.
Just a few things real quick. 2 thank yous and an update. One, I wanted to say publicly thank you to the Center on Aging for being gracious hosts to our city council retreat a couple weekends ago, letting us use the Parker building as we had our meetings and did some discussion. They were great hosts and a great facility, and it was nice to do that in town and have the space. So thank you to them. Also wanted to thank the organizers for the Juneteenth event that happened Saturday. I had the privilege of being invited to come in and read the proclamation on behalf of the city. And it was a great event, good attendance, and I think it was just a positive event for our community. I wanted to thank the organizers for putting that together and the work that they've put in leading up to that, and look forward to that building year upon year. And then finally, I just want to give the council an update with regards to the facade improvement program. I know at the last council meeting, staff had indicated that we were going to try and have that on this meeting, but there was a few things that we still need to work on to get that right. And so we need a little bit more time to do that, but we do intend to have that on the July 6th council meeting for that one. But other than that, my report is included in the packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions of clarification if council has any.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Any questions for our city manager on his report? Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Number 4 is the application for budget consideration. The annual budget for the City of Minot typically includes requests for funding from local organizations. The budget process will include brief presentations from those organizations to explain their funding requests and allow the council the opportunity to ask questions prior to making any budget decisions. We do have a couple of those applications, 3 of them that are attached. One that is not is from the 1st District Health Unit, as that is handled a little bit differently, but we do have the folks from 1st District Health Unit. Miss Lisa Clute is here for a couple of brief statements and a short presentation.
Thank you.
Now we are.
Go ahead when you're ready there, Lisa.
Okay. Good evening, council. And I just wanted to, as the mayor indicated, we have a different budget process. We don't fill out the application and so forth. Now we're dealt with a contract, but I did want to take the opportunity to just share our annual report, which looks very different from typical annual reports. In the past, we have provided annual reports that give very detailed information on services that we've provided, what in Minot, what in Ward, what in each of the 7 counties. That information will be forthcoming. It is still being, we are trying to pull it from our electronic medical records, but because a lot of our services were, or efforts were moved over to COVID, a lot of our past services didn't happen the way they did in the past. So I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, not only today, but at any future time after you've had an opportunity to review the annual report. And again, I will provide you more detailed information regarding how many vaccinations were given in the Minot area as compared to Ward County and so forth. That will be coming soon. However, remembering that the vaccines didn't really start until January. So it's hard to compare last year to any other previous years. I am currently working on our 21 budget. And at this point, I don't anticipate asking any, either county or city for any additional dollars from what we have received in the past. I would keep those requests at a level funding. I am being respectful of the situation that we are all in after COVID, and certainly the financial impacts that COVID have had on our community and governments and so forth, as well as we do have some COVID dollars that are coming in. We are not exactly, we know that there are several deliverables attached to those dollars, and what I will anticipate is that we will move some of those resources that we currently are expending in some of the some other areas over into those COVID deliverables. So I wish I had all the details to provide in my budget process, but at this point we don't have all the information. But I do know that we will have COVID dollars coming in, approximately $650,000 per year. Some of that is very we will have to contract some of that out and so forth. But again, we're still getting specifics on deliverables and how we will manage that yet. So that's all I had for this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Clute. Any questions at this time? Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Moving on to the other applications, and just for council's understanding, again, this is discussion items for consideration for tonight. The council does not have to take any action unless otherwise it would so choose to for direction. We will have that opportunity coming up through our budgeting process after this as well tonight. Let's turn to the Commission on Aging application that was submitted. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Roger Reich. I'm the Executive Director for Minot Commission on Aging. I believe all you have the package that we sent forward, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I'd like to say a couple things. We've been great partners with the City of Minot since 1973 when we started this process, and it was probably back in 73. A senior was probably living to the age of 65 or 66 was the average age. Now we have seniors that are living well into their 90s. Right now we have seniors that are on our meal routes that are 90 plus. So our average age right now for our home delivered seniors is 80 to 85. So that's kind of where we're at. One of the big things, obviously COVID hit us, but we did deliver every day. And at the beginning, we delivered 2 meals a day to our seniors because we knew they were the most affected, and we wanted to keep them safe, and that's what we did. So happy to answer any questions that you might have of me or what we do on a day-to-day basis with our services.
Thank you, Roger. Alderwoman Evans.
So I've had the fortune of spending time with the commission and your staff and volunteers. And one of the things that, we think of you guys with the Meals on Wheels, but there are so many more services that you provide to seniors. Like, can you share some of that with us? Like, the foot clinic just really impresses me. I love the foot clinic.
Sure. Yes, thanks, Councilwoman and Mayor. We do a lot more services. Obviously, the Meals on Wheels are our big ticket item. It's the most known of our services, but yes, we do health and foot care clinics. We do that with a partnership of First District and contract nurses, and that's a big thing for seniors. Foot care not only takes care of their feet, but it's also that check that a health professional sees something that might not be normal, and it could be as simple as they might be pre-diabetic or something like that.
Richard McCann with the Hootie Group.
So
is now exiting.
Please continue, Roger. I apologize.
So that's very important. It's that look before something serious could happen, and our seniors appreciate that. As we get older, our eyesight goes, arthritis sets in, so that foot care is a big ticket item for our seniors, and it gets to be a bigger item every day as we see it and stuff. We also do some really neat things. We do a telephone reassurance calls every day to seniors in the community. We talk to them, make sure that they're okay, make sure that all things are going well. And along with the Meals on Wheels, that's another check on our seniors. This last year, we found a lot of seniors, and not a lot, but quite a few seniors that had fallen, and we were the first people there, and our volunteers or our staff stayed until medical teams got there, and we actually, were there during a fire and pulled the senior out of the house and stayed with that senior until the family got there and medical and the fire department got there. So just those little things, and we do so much more. We do Medicare Part D prescription plans. That changes every year, and we have seniors come in and help, and we help them pick. We don't pick the plan for them, but we show them what's available so that they know and they make a informed decision. And so there's many things that we do, and I consider us that point of contact. We might not do that service, but we sure know who does it and how to get that person in contact with them. One of the big things that we do is we answer the phone. There's not that press 1 for this service, press 2. Somebody's going to answer that phone most of the time and pick up and talk to that senior. So that's very important, or that family member. And it's always very important to do that with our clientele.
So COVID, I know, shut down a lot of your in-person stuff. What's the timeline and plan for the commission and reopening things up so seniors can come back to the facilities?
Right. We're going to start our congregate meals are starting the first full week of July. We're going to start that. We're going to do some informal surveys, see what they want back in place first. We know that they want some of our yoga classes back and some of the exercise classes that they were being part of. So we're going to bring those back probably by the 1st of August. We hope to do that. We are doing foot care again inside the building and some home visits. So we're doing some of those. We're very cautious on that. Probably the best part is most of our clientele have gotten the shot. And so we're very happy that we're able to work with them and things. So we're going to bring those kind of things back, and hopefully by early fall we'll be whatever normal is. We'll be there.
And I just have one more thing.
Continue.
Reminding people of the cafeteria, right? If you ever want, a good cup of coffee and, a reasonably priced meal, the Parker has that cafeteria that is run by the commission. It's a great place to just stop in and have a quick bite to eat, socialize, but that is open to the public, correct?
It is open to the public, and we do a senior breakfast down there too. So if you're of age to 60 and over, you're more than welcome to come down and have breakfast at a very reduced rate for a senior breakfast. It's very good. There's different items that you can order off the menu, and we have great staff. We have really good people taking care of it. And I promise I won't cook your eggs, and you won't get any shells in them.
Thank you, Roger.
I just have
Any-
one last comment. You didn't mention this, is that what impressed me really the most about the commission is they never will turn a senior away for lack of being able to pay, whether that's Meals on Wheels, whether that is the foot clinic, any of their services. If people can, contribute to offset the cost, that's great, but nobody will ever be denied services because of a lack of ability to pay, and that's commendable. Thank you.
That's correct. If they have the ability or not the ability, we don't ask any of those questions. We just take care of them, and that's the way it works, and it works out well. We're like the city. We look at our budget. We look at the federal money coming in. We look at state money coming in. Obviously, we look at this kind of money coming in, and that pie. We try to split that up and do everything that we can with the funds that we get, and that's how it works, and it's worked out well so far. And like I said, we're happy to be a partner with the city as long as that we have been.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it.
And you're always welcome back to the Parker for any events. But I would like to have come on Saturday. I wasn't invited for the tamales.
Next on the list is the Minot Area Council of the Arts application. Good afternoon, early evening, Mr. Anderson.
Hello. Mayor Sipma, aldermen and alderwomen of the council, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Justin Anderson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minot Area Council of the Arts. Before you is a modest request for funding to help us continue our work and our efforts into 2022. Since 1973, the Minot Area Council of the Arts has worked to promote and advocate for the arts community in the Minot region. This work has taken on many forms throughout the years, from a small committee assembled to organize an arts calendar to the organization that exists today. Our goals and intentions have remained constant and are highlighted in our mission statement to support and advance the full range of arts for all ages and abilities. The effects of the global COVID-19 pandemic have been hard on everyone, and the arts certainly were not immune as this activity came to a halt and artists and groups had to pivot to figure out how they could continue serving their audiences. While the last year has been difficult, there has perhaps been no other time in our history where the Minot Area Council of the Arts has received so much attention and recognition for our efforts. Last spring, we had the simple idea of highlighting local art on digital billboards with the message, "Stay home, make art." This series gained statewide attention, was even discussed as an example of innovation during the North Dakota Association of Nonprofits Organization Conference last year. In December, we were awarded a resilience grant from Arts Midwest, a regional arts organization serving 9 states, and we were awarded the highest dollar amount in North Dakota for that grant round. We used this money to support our local artists and groups by re-granting the money to them to help sustain their activities. At the beginning of 2021, while we were unveiling a new logo and website, we received word that we had been awarded the 2021 Governor's Award for the Arts in the category of Arts Organization, an award given only every 2 years, and the highest honor an arts organization can receive in the state of North Dakota. We have capitalized on this momentum by continuing to expand our work and our efforts. Just a few weeks ago, we said goodbye to our summer concert program, Arts in the Parks, which ran for 35 years, and launched our updated program, Arts in the City. This change expands our attentions and impact by bringing our Thursday concerts into downtown Minot. After only 3 weeks, locally owned businesses downtown have already seen the benefit of this activity and focus. We are working hard to continue our momentum throughout 2021 and 2022 with plans to expand our services to new venues and new activities, including a service to bring local art into businesses throughout the community, and beginning in the fall of 2022, bringing World Fest to Minot. Before you tonight is also a resolution designating the Minot Area Council of the Arts as an officially recognized local arts agency. When this passes, we will become the first recognized LAA in the state of North Dakota. Just one more step towards the Minot Area Council of the Arts becoming one of the most influential arts organizations in the state. All of this is just a brief glimpse into what we do, but our impact goes far beyond what we just do. The last detailed arts and economic prosperity survey conducted by the Americans for the Arts was done in 2015. At that time, arts and cultural activity in the Minot region was a more than $13.5 million industry, an industry that brings audiences to shop in our stores, stay in our hotels, and buy gas at our pumps. Nationally, the average return for every dollar of public money spent on the arts is $11. An ROI even the most conservative financial advisors would bet on. Minot is in line with this national average, and in 2015, arts-related activity was linked to more than $486,000 in direct revenue to local government. By all indications, these numbers have only grown in the years since. Direct economic impact is only a portion of the impact that arts and cultural activity has on a community. The effect on quality of life and community sustainability is immeasurable. Arts and cultural activity bring people to a community and influences them to stay in that community. The Minot Area Council of the Arts strives to be at the forefront of this activity, and last year our efforts helped the North Dakota Department of Tourism to recognize Minot as a place for artists in their 2020 North Dakota Tourism Guide. Your contribution not only helps sustain our operations and efforts, but also goes to help fund the Minot City Band, currently in their 100th season, and helps with education and outreach efforts by the Minot Symphony Orchestra, starting their 95th season this fall. We are excited for the future of the Minot Area Council of the Arts and look forward to our continued relationship with the City of Minot as we continue our efforts in our community. I hope this has given you all a small taste of the scope and impact of our organization, and that you can see the benefits of helping us continue our operations in the future. Happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate the presentation. For the council's benefit, 5.29 is the art agency designation resolution. If you didn't have that connectivity on that one, also want to note and a thank you to Mr. Anderson as well for he is one of the community partners that is assisting with the 10th anniversary of the 2011 flood event that is coming up this Saturday, and is playing a big part in helping coordinate some of the artists and other activities that will be taking place. Any questions at this time? Alderwoman Evans.
Of course I have. Tell me, are you a membership-based organization? If so, is that open to art? Like, how does that work? Do artists join? Like, how would an artist get more involved?
We do serve our members. We have a variety of membership levels from individual artists to organizations. We also have community support memberships for individuals and for businesses. Our membership really, it goes to help us highlight artists and groups in the region. Through our website, we have profiles on all of our members, our artistic members. And our membership dues are extraordinarily reasonable. An individual membership for an individual artist is $6 a year. So that's a hefty price tag for a membership, considering all the benefits we provide them. We base organization memberships on a sliding scale based on their budget, and the highest membership level is $150 a year.
Great. Thank you.
Any further questions for this applicant? All right, and just to note too, the ask for the grant is the same as the previous year, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The last application that was submitted comes from the difference application. Is there a representative to speak on this application that is before us? If not, that has been submitted for consideration as we work through the budgeting process. I would look to the council for any direct or indirect discussion on the applicants or the applications at this time. Again, this is an opportunity for us to get information so that we can utilize that in the upcoming budget discussions in the weeks ahead. So I thank all of the applicants for being here tonight as well, and I'm sure that no one would begrudge anyone if they had further questions to contact you directly to get answers. So I appreciate it, and thank you. Thank you for all the different services and different assets that you provide for the community. Thank you. That takes us on to number 5, and this is our consent agenda. We have 30 different items within our consent agenda. Asked council, we don't have any individual items that need to be pulled for individual discussion, so I would look out to the audience. If there's anyone that feels that they need one of the items pulled for individual discussion, please let us know. Otherwise, it will be passed with recommendations from staff that were provided within the agenda. Seeing none, what are the wishes of the council? Alderman Pittner.
Mayor, I move that we pass the items on consent.
Second.
Motion to pass consent agenda items with recommendations from staff, second by Alderman Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to section 6 of our agenda. These are the action items. First one is 6.1, the abatement request by Huddy Group LP. The Huddy Group LP has submitted an application for abatement of property taxes on 92 vacant lots in the Prairie Wind 4th and 5th editions. The city assessor recommends partial approval of the abatement request. The details recommendations are included in the attached memorandum, which is, I believe, 194 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Prior to a motion here, Mr. Druce, one of our assessors, has a short comment as he has been in discussion with Huddy Group for this recommendation.
Yes, thank you. Mayor Sitma, members of the council, today, right before the meeting, a representative from Huddy Group contacted me and said they were okay with the City of Minot's recommendations for the 2020 assessments. If anybody has any questions, I can try to answer them.
Any questions for Damon at this time?
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. I would look for a motion from the council.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderwoman Olson to approve the recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Last call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve the recommendations. Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yep.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 6.2 is a raffle permit application appeal. This is the Swain Fishing Team. The police chief denied the application for Swain Fishing Team to conduct a raffle on the basis the organization is not a public-spirited charitable organization. Under Section 18-184 of the Minot Code of Ordinances, in the event the chief of police does not approve the application, the applicant shall have the right to place the application before the city council at its next regular scheduled meeting. The recommendation to the council to consider the application by Swain Fishing Team to conduct a raffle August 28th, 2021 at the Ranger Lounge. I'd perhaps look to see if there is any member of the Swain Fishing Team here. If not, I would look to our police chief first, maybe, to give a brief background on this.
Mr. Mayor and Council, when this came before me, I looked at the definition that is supplied for a public-spirited organization. The only thing that comes close is an amateur sport competition, but that is generally like the Beaver Boosters or Minot Junior Golf, where they actually support an amateur team. In this case, they want to enter a fishing tournament where, it doesn't say which tournament, but most tournaments have a prize, so it looks like they would actually benefit from this, and there's no mention of that money going to a charitable organization. So I just don't think it fits the public-spirited organization. However, the state law does allow for the council to decide if this organization would be public-spirited, and if you decide to do that, then that alone is enough to grant it. So that would be up to you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for our police chief at this time?
I have a motion.
Thank you, Chief. I'll entertain a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion to ratify the decision made by Chief Klug to deny the application to conduct a raffle for this.
Motion to ratify for denial, and was that a second on the phone?
Second by Janser.
Second by Alderman Janser. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman Patagula.
Is the applicant here to speak on their behalf?
Very good question, Alderman Patagula. I would look out into the audience one more time. Okay. I've been told he is working out of town and unable to attend tonight. Last call for discussion on the motion to ratify the decision. Seeing none, motion is to ratify, which is following the police chief's denial of the permit. Please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes. Motion is approved. 6.3 is the City Hall schematic design submittal. The building committee has taken direction from the council with input from the city departments and developed a schematic design for council to review. JLG is present with the schematic designs for council for consideration. Our city engineer, Mr. Lance Meyer, is here to start us off. Good afternoon or early evening, Mr. Meyer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. While Derek pulls this up, we'll get everything ready here for us. We have tonight with us Scott Jordan Denny. He is the architect with JLG. He's one of their practice leads for municipal buildings, so we're lucky to have him on this project. And at this point, what we've done is we walked the team and everyone through our schematic design process. So we haven't gone down to the level of getting into the detailed design of office spaces or anything. It's essentially taking groups of people and putting them next to each other, make sure we have synergies between the departments, how to best lay out the building to get folks in and out in a convenient fashion. So we want council's approval tonight on the schematic design, which will then launch us into design development here this summer. So, okay, this seems to work just fine. Scott, up, down, we'll advance here.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Again, I'm Scott Jordan Denny with JLG Architects. Up, down, there we go. So just as a reminder, I think the last time when Eric was here presenting, we talked about the goals and aspirations of the building committee. And first of all, we want to create a very welcoming facility for citizens of Minot. And of course, stewardship is always a priority, maximizing the impact of taxpayer dollars and making sure that we're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars throughout this design process. And one of the goals of the City Hall is to create an opportunity for attracting top talent as you compete against corporations and businesses. We also want to make working at the city a great opportunity for people. And we want to foster collaboration amongst the various departments within the City Hall. And over time, we want to make sure that there's flexibility built into the space, that the City Hall can adapt and change and evolve over time as the mission of various departments change, and create a very user-friendly facility that is a one-stop shop for citizens to come and conveniently take care of all of their interactions with the city and providing services to citizens. So where we are at is just wrapping up schematic design. That is the second box from the left. And we are here for the City Council update. And as Lance mentioned, we'll be moving into design development, which gets into the next level of detail into the project. So right now, we're just getting the basic concept into place and getting the relationships of various departments into place. And we'll be starting tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be re-meeting with all the department heads to check through the plans that you'll be seeing here shortly to get more into that nitty-gritty detail of office layouts and service counters, those kinds of things. So just to orient you, the site plan, of course, is the Wells Fargo building on Main Street between 2nd Avenue and 3rd Avenue. And there is a surface parking lot just to the south of Minot City Hall, future Minot City Hall. And we anticipate that that south door would be the main front door going into City Hall. And moving up to the floor plans, we'll be using all 3 levels of the Wells Fargo Bank. And this is the lowest level with its door on first. And our concept here is to create a central core that really rotates around a new stair and an ADA compliant elevator. And on the first floor, you will see the dispatch for the 911 call center, and we've located that on the lowest level in the southwest corner to provide the most protected location for that facility that needs to be operational 24/7, 365. And also on this level is the IT area because of that great synergy that happens between the console, the server room, the radio room, and the support that IT provides for them as well as for the rest of City Hall. And then on the north side, you'll see the existing tenant that's there. A dentist office is in there, and we've got future space that can either accommodate growth or could be another tenant. And talk of a coffee shop mentioned, for example, but right now there's just a flexible space there. And then the gray area in the 2 bottom corners are mechanical rooms and electrical rooms that will be staying in place. Going up to the next level, again, this would be the main level, and you see at the bottom the main entrance coming into the City Hall. And immediately inside is a lobby space that has service windows for both finance, for utility billing, as well as the assessor. So again, that very convenient aspect of that one-stop shop. The first thing you do is be able to interact between citizens and public services. And again, you'll see that that elevator and stair is at the center core, and revolving around that as you go up through all the floors is either a service desk for the citizens to interact, or there'll be a door coming into a department that has a reception area that greets citizens and a waiting area that greets citizens and allows them to wait for whoever they're coming to see. And also a core idea of these floors was to provide meeting rooms that are surrounding that center core that connect to the public realm at that center core area and also to departments from the inside so that citizens and staff can meet kind of in the middle. One of the things that we wanted to provide was a little bit of security and separation between just the public being able to get back into departments and wander around looking for someone to talk to. We always want to be greeting them at a service counter or greeting them at a reception area. Also, a highlight of this floor is the City Council chamber. It would be much like this with a curved dais and seating for about 50 or 60 people with a couple of doors in the back. And one big difference would be an operable wall, probably an operable glass wall that it would allow the council chamber to expand into that center core so that if there is an event that has a large audience, we can add additional chairs into that space and expand the seating area for the council chamber. Also on this floor is the assessor in the bottom right corner, and then finance takes up most of the left-hand side. And one of the advantages of that is being able to use the vault that's on this floor. And then up in the upper left corner is the NDR grant manager with a large meeting room next door to that. And in the upper right corner is PIO and some mayor and council offices. And those mayor council offices, knowing that you guys aren't there all the time, could also be used as small conference rooms for staff to intersect with citizens. Going up to the top level, again, you'll see that elevator stair at the center core that a lot of activities revolve around. You'll see a lot more conference rooms here and a lot of different sizes, small meeting rooms, medium meeting rooms, the computer training area, and a large meeting room at the bottom corner with some areas for soft seating for waiting while you're waiting to interact with staff. On this floor is the city manager's office along with the clerk's office. In the upper left corner is the city attorney's office. In the upper right corner is the lunchroom for staff. And then below them is human resources. And again, on this floor, we also have some future expansion space available. And in the bottom right corner is an existing tenant. And you'll also see a couple gray areas. Those are mechanical rooms that we cannot change. And then also offering off the center core are the public restrooms, and those are stacked on top of each other for efficient plumbing. So a couple preliminary views. Again, we're just in schematic design, and these will be continued to be refined as we work our way through the entire design process. But again, this is a view from that south parking lot where we anticipate most citizens coming to interact with staff would have that convenient parking, would come to this new front door that really announces the front entrance to City Hall with a sign on top that says City Hall to make it very obvious where to go. We would like to use a couple of the parking spots to enhance some landscaping and just make it a little bit of a softer entrance into the City Hall and provide a place to put some landscaping and some trees and some flags. Another opportunity we have is to remove a couple of the precast concrete panels over the entrance to create a more glassy area. And if you recall, on the third floor, there was a little area of soft seating and waiting area there. So bringing natural daylight into the space as much as possible was another goal. If you've been in that building, you know that the slit windows that are existing don't offer a lot of natural daylight, so we're trying to seek some areas to bring that natural daylight into the core of the building. And again, a preliminary view of that first floor as you come in the main entrance, and having the assessor's office on the right-hand side, followed by the city council, and the utility billing window on the left-hand side, trying to create a very open, inviting, welcoming, colorful space, and make it very convenient and easy to find, easy to navigate for citizens to interact with staff. And you can see a kind of dead center, that center core of stair and elevators that connects all three floors, again, making it really convenient to get up to all levels of this new City Hall. So I know there's been some questions from council about potential sustainability strategies, so we are continuing, especially as we get into the next level of detail and start understanding opportunities for energy savings and things like that. We will be looking at lighting and power density to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible on that front. The building is very lightly insulated right now, so as we start adjusting walls and have the opportunity to look at new windows, thermally broken windows, and being able to put insulation on the roof as well as on the walls, that should help from an energy efficiency standpoint. There's been some discussion about photovoltaic panels on the roof or green roof, and we are exploring what the impact of that will be, and we'll be reporting back to the building committee as well as you on our findings there. But we have started computer modeling to understand what the impacts of the insulation, the power lighting, and any other opportunities we have to be looking at sustainable strategies. And the budget, we have a $13.8 million total project budget, and you can see a lot of detail on the right-hand side. And we don't need to go through that line by line, but some of the big ideas here, the construction budget, we are shooting for a target of $5.3 million, and we built in a contingency of $800,000 at this point, knowing that there are a lot of unknowns, and as you start exploring into that building and start building this building, there will be some surprises. So we want to make sure that we're managing risk by having that contingency there. And another way to manage risk is to have alternates as part of this project. So that $5.3 million is really very, very baseline construction budget. And we've given the building committee a whole host of alternatives that allow the building committee to make some decisions about what other features would be beneficial to the City Hall. So those alternatives could add up to $1.9 million in ads. Then there's soft cost budget of $6 million. Those are not hard construction dollars. Those are other things that go into building the building. And that's a little bit high at this point because this includes the purchase of the building for $2.6 million. And it also includes all of the 911 call center equipment, which is a lot of technology as part of that. So there's $1.5 million as that. So those are kind of unique features for this particular facility that are being tallied up in the soft cost budget. So that base bid brings us to a total of 12.1 million. So obviously that's below the 13.8 total project budget. And if you took every alternate there, you've got a $14 million budget, very close to that 13.8 million. So again, that's why the alternates are there, to give you the flexibility to pick and choose some of those alternates. And knowing today that the bidding climate and material costs are fluctuating fairly significantly in post-COVID world, we want to make sure that we're building in those safety valves for you guys to make well-informed decisions as we go through the design process. So that's it. I know that was very fast, but any questions on that?
Thank you for the presentations. Any questions about the design or any of the other features that were in the description that was both submitted and presented here tonight? Alderman Padugula.
Thank you. I have about 15 questions. I spend most of the afternoon going over this line by line, and most of them are very technical and specific, and I'll be asking them at tomorrow's committee meeting and meeting with you privately.
Okay.
I don't think they're of general interest, and some involve security issues, which I don't feel comfortable talking about publicly.
Okay.
There are some questions, though, that I think are appropriate to talk about openly at this level, at this point. The first question I have is, I notice you have separate kind of customer interaction stations on the second floor, one for utilities, the other for the assessor. If we were to go to some sort of a centralized customer service location, would that be enough? Could those be combined? One of the things we've talked about over the years is maybe having a 311 function, both online and over the telephone and maybe in person. We've talked, for example, about maybe having a greeter at this building who could direct people to the right place. Would those two separate glass areas give you enough flexibility for that?
Yes, I believe so. And one thing that we tried to do was, again, we're working within an existing building, so to use the space as efficiently as possible and get the correct departments to fit next to each other, as well as the relationship between those departments, the departments that work closely together on a day-to-day basis, were some of the goals that we wanted to create here. And to get the assessor and the finance department to fit together on like one side or the other of this plan, it simply just didn't fit. So to put one on the right-hand side and one on the left-hand side seemed to be the most efficient way to get those two departments to fit. But again, we wanted to create as customer-friendly an opportunity here as possible.
So if we went toward a unified kind of a customer service portal, that could be managed, do you think?
Sure, I think so.
Thank you. By the way, I should mention, too, I was impressed by the project and what's been done so far in the work of the committee, and also the architectural details. I'm not an architect, but I know some architects, and this impresses me. The second question I have, and this is in terms of public access, which I think, again, is important to talk about at this point. You talk about this operable wall in the city council chambers. What do you have in mind there?
Well, as I mentioned, our initial concept is it would be a glass wall. One concept that we've been talking about with the building committee is this idea of transparency in government, that people could see what's happening, and people might be encouraged to participate in government more frequently. But then also, as I mentioned, to have that be an operable wall, kind of an accordion door that's a glass door that would allow the city council chamber to open up to that center core. And again, whether it's a topic that brings in more people to discuss it, to be able to spill out into that public space and be able to invite more people into the dialogue.
So this would be kind of like the garage door at the pizza place over here, or downtown
nicer
places.
Than a garage door, yeah.
but holding the opposite way.
Yeah.
But something like that really facilitates interaction and visibility, certainly.
Yes.
Okay. One other thing about the council chambers that I want to inquire about right now is this notion of the dais, and I noticed in the narrative you said you wanted something large enough to accommodate any of the current committees, which would number up to 14.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that being raised like it is here versus being essentially at ground level with the rest of the audience?
Yeah, and various councils prefer being on the floor versus being raised, and vice versa. We would see it being raised a little bit.
How much?
Because I think what that does enable is the council to be able to see the audience and vice versa, right? We want to be able to get that visual connection between council and the audience. So I think a little bit of a raise is good. Now, are we talking a foot, maybe 18 inches, something like that? I think we've had a lot of discussion about the rail here that exists and that we don't want to do something like this, that this might be a little bit off-putting to the public. So I think we want to keep that a little more engaging between audience and council.
What would you estimate the current raise at?
I think this is about 18 inches.
So it'd be this or less.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Is there any chance that any of the windows would be able to open? We had a discussion about this before the meeting started, and the mayor told us that, he's thought about it and talked with lots of people, and that the engineers and the architects and the building maintenance people uniformly argue against that, although building occupants tend to argue for that. Your thoughts at this point? And again, your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put architects in that category as well. We kind of like operable windows too.
Good.
Mechanical engineers tend to not, because the mechanical system is a fairly fine-tuned system, and it's fine-tuned around being in an enclosed space that can be controlled and managed. And so when people start opening windows, that kind of throws off the balance, and even more so, people are hot on one side, cold on the other, and you can never quite get the building back into that kind of simple status position.
Because the thing I keep coming back to is because we're going to have to replace all the windows, right?
Yes.
Is a small operable section. I noticed that many of the windows are in individual offices. I grant you there'll still be some temperature fluctuations and gradients,
Right.
but in terms of the mental health of employees, to be able to have some fresh air, there probably aren't a whole lot of birds downtown, but just to have that level of control over their environment and allow some fresh air, and also if there's a need to ventilate the building for some reason, if there's some smoke or some noxious substance, just those little tiny things that slide open. You can't crawl through them, but that give you some fresh air. What about that?
I think we can certainly explore that and get back to the building committee and the council, for sure. Again, I think these windows are fairly skinny. I don't even know if they're 2 feet wide. They're somewhere in that range. So if you had something that slid side to side, I'm not sure that would get you a lot. So I think we'd have to explore what exactly does that mean. If that then screens and it's more of a different kind of window that swings open, we'd have to look at that and see what that means. And right now, because these are continuous windows going all 3 floors, it's what we would call a curtain wall system. It's
So it'd be one surface.
It's basically one continuous system that is attached to the floors, and those tend to not have operable windows in them, just because that's not the way the system works. But we're certainly willing to explore that and get back to you.
Because I know the building my wife works in is fairly modern and very energy efficient, and have very narrow windows, but they do open a little bit. And her coworkers and she report that that's very much appreciated.
Yeah, I bet.
2 more questions. One question is in terms of, I notice there's a lot of empty space here that's currently occupied by tenants or hasn't been built out. Do you have a rough idea of what that totals?
Each floor is about 15,000 square feet. So on the 3rd floor, maybe we're talking about 3,000 square feet. And second is none, probably about the same, maybe 4,000 square feet at the 1st floor. I'm roughly guessing here.
So you're talking about a fifth or maybe a quarter to a fifth of 2 of the floors. So that would leave significant expansion room if we decided to expand or need to expand.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then the last question, I think, is that, again, we're talking about a structure that's hopefully going to last 50, 100 years.
Yes.
And The city presumably, hopefully, will grow. Our population will increase. Demand for services will grow from the city. If we need to expand the facility, I take it there's no room to go up, and going sideways is not into the parking lot is a possibility, certainly, but probably not the preferred option because of the value of the parking. In the past, we've talked about moving over on top of the parking garages, or that garage. How difficult would it be to put in, and where, just very conceptually, we're at a very tentative stage, where could you put a connection if we wanted to put a passageway over the alley?
Yeah, I think where you would be doing that is on the third floor. And right now, I don't think there's great alignment between the adjacent parking structure and the floors of the Wells Fargo Bank. So that would take some study to see exactly where that connects through. But that would have to, I think, to get enough clearance for vehicles to go down the alley, you would need to be up at the third floor of the Wells Fargo building. So somewhere on the left-hand side of this plan, you would need to be connecting across. So whether that would happen, up more close to the top side or the bottom side, I think we would have to be looking at that when that eventuality happens. I know that we have talked about the idea of expanding to the south into that surface parking lot, which then might mean staff parking and visitor parking would happen in the parking structure adjacent. That might change the dynamic of how that works. You still might want some kind of a skyway connection so it's convenient to get into the city hall from upper levels or connecting into elevators, those kinds of things. So that might be an option as well.
So this current proposal that you have in a very tentative form really wouldn't preclude a connection with the parking ramp for extra office space or preclude us from going south if we need to?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those are very responsive answers. And again, I'm impressed with what I'm seeing here and the work that's already been put into it. But I think when it involves the council, all of us need to be involved in that discussion. And I think the public needs to be, again, because of the issues of accessibility and transparency and openness. So that's why I raised those issues here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
One of the questions I had, or maybe relating to Alderman Patagula's, with the windows, understandably, as you put it, and it's very evident from the outside, they're very narrow. So if there is options that are brought forward, I'd like to see what both of those costs are rather than just going down one road at the higher end cost, so that we can make that decision.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Any other questions on design? Alderwoman Olson, I think I saw your hand up first.
Certainly, I was just going to respond to your comment there. A large part of the conversation that the building committee has had is the security of the dispatch center. So, as Scott talks about, whether the windows are ceiling to floor, that's something that needs to be taken into consideration because that part of that building needs to be incredibly secure. So they're the experts, they'll be able to give us that information, but I think that's first and foremost what we have to be considering.
Thank you. Very good point. Alderwoman Evans.
So I know I've talked to Mr. Meyer about this, that this building is going to be entirely ADA compliant, and as a disabled person, I appreciate that. I would like us to strive to be better than compliant. I would like this to be like a model in accessibility for our disabled folks. So working with disabled advocates in this community to, actually vet some of these things to, not just make sure we're compliant, because I know we're going to do that legally, but I think we have an opportunity to really be much more than compliant and really be a model for welcoming people with physical disabilities into our building and our city hall.
Absolutely. Welcome that opportunity.
One question, perhaps this might even be for Alderwoman Olson or yourself or anybody else on the committee. We had this discussion here over the last probably 12 to 14 months as we've provided more security in this facility for access, but some of that question actually came down on the tertiary side on security for council chambers. Has there been any thought given to the dais or the actual security that would be provided to those elected officials down the road?
Yes, we have had conversations about that, and on this plan of the second floor, you'll see the council conference room up to the upper right corner, as well as then to the bottom, you see a storage room with two doors going to it, one out of the council chambers and one into the assessor's office. So our thought was if something bad is happening, that's a couple different escape routes for the council to go into that council conference room or to go through the storage room into the assessor's office and just try to get out of the council chamber. Hopefully that never happens. But unfortunately, you got to think about those things in these days.
It is unfortunate we have to think about those. In one of the conversations, and I apologize, I can't remember who it was with, and it was modeling after or following and tracking after some of the action that was taken, I believe just in either Moorhead, Minnesota, or one of the communities just on the other side of the border out in Minnesota that had actually gone through and remodeled the dais that had Kevlar shielding underneath. In that regard, it is exceptionally unfortunate that we have to think about stuff like that in these times, but certainly I think as we look at this holistically, I think it should be also top of mind for things that we do have to consider.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you would not be the first to consider putting Kevlar into the dais. So I think we'll have that conversation with the building committee and bring that back to you guys as well when we come back for the next end of phase for design development phase.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Alderwoman Olson. I'll just respond to that as well, Mr. Mayor. It's a balance. It's a dance. It's the people's house. So we want our citizens to come to this building and feel welcome and be able to have access to our staff and to all of us. And how do you find that balance? And it's been a lot of the conversation, and I know it'll be continuing as part of that conversation. But how do you keep everyone safe, but keep it accessible to everyone? Right. So we're not quite there. I mean, I think we've had some good conversations, but certainly things to consider. And on budget. Yes.
That too. And I think tomorrow and Wednesday, as we get into those more detailed conversations with department heads and staff, to really understand the level of security that they feel comfortable with, and that we'll be bringing back some recommendations to the building committee and the council. We definitely will be having those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Very well. Actually, our city manager here
Not
has a comment.
a question, but as a bit of a segue. So as we get into planning the details, staff did send out an email to council requesting any willingness to sit in on this conversation as we get more into the details, particularly with the mayor and council office and the council chambers and the public areas. We do have that meeting scheduled for tomorrow. A lot of you responded very positively that you would like to attend that. And so I guess staff needs direction whether or not we need to schedule a special meeting tomorrow for a quorum of the council to be there, or whether some of those that had, I think originally we had planned on, Alderwoman Olson is your delegate to this group on an ongoing basis. We felt it appropriate that the mayor attend as well. And then Alderman Ross had volunteered first. And then we had some other council members that also were interested in participating. So we either need to schedule a special council meeting for a majority to attend, or one of those three needs to step aside so we don't have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. And not that it's an issue at all to schedule a public meeting, but Alderman Ross?
I'll step aside.
I would like to make a motion for a special meeting. I think any council person that wants to be there should be there, and if it means calling a special meeting, let's call a special meeting.
Alderman Ross, I'll defer to you if you absolutely do want to be there. It's not an imposition.
No, I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it, but in light of what's happening in my world, it probably would work out okay. And I trust everybody else up on the dais, except Bittner. I'm just kidding.
But
All
Steve,
right.
weren't you thinking about attending? So Steve wants to attend.
Yeah, so the three.
Continue.
So the three that we would have right now would be Alderwoman Olson as the designee, and then the mayor, and then Alderman Padrigula was the other one. But again, we didn't want to leave out any council members if they wanted to attend, and it's not an issue for us to create a special meeting. We just wanted to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to do that.
Okay.
I'll be there.
If anybody else does want to be there, then we'll just notice. Okay. Then at this time, we don't need to have one. So with that, we will continue on with our regular scheduled agenda here. 6.4 is the sewer connection fee at 900 Yes, sorry.
We have to approve the schematic design?
I would look to Lance.
Mr. Mayor, there is a recommendation to approve the schematic design.
Thank you, Alderman Ross. Recommendations for approval then?
So moved.
Alderman
Second.
Pittner makes the motion. Alderman Ross is the second. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser. We lost him. Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Now we can move on to 6.4, the sewer connection fee, 900 21st Avenue Southeast. City Council set the Puppy Dog sewer connection fee at $4,440 per acre. The STNL development is planning to build a commercial structure at 900 21st Avenue Southeast, which is located within the Puppy Dog sewer system. This commercial lot is approximately 7.93 acres, but only 3.62 is developable, so they are requesting a fee reduction. The recommendation is the council approve one of the three alternatives listed within the memo. Those alternatives are listed under item 5. You can see those on the attachments, and perhaps we would bring Mr. Meyer in for a brief overview on this that might answer some questions prior to a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had requests like this before, so this isn't anything unheard of. Minot has a lot of topography, and some of that just can't be developed, and this parcel is no exception. You know, about a little over half of it is on either a hillside or down in the floodplain. So when we set these fees a long time ago, all of these undevelopable areas were already calculated in, so we've subtracted that area off. So now that we have the footprint of this development, we feel it's appropriate to reduce that sewer connection fee, which would be number 2, and reduce that down about $16,000.
Okay. Thank you, Lance. Any questions for Mr. Meyer while he's at the podium there? Alderman Patagula.
Just a comment. I really appreciate your personal and the staff's flexibility on this. We often hear complaints that the city does not facilitate development or is not an easy place to do business and stuff like that. In my hearing, these complaints are often very vague and repetitive. This is a clear example where we're the opposite. And I think that needs to be noted not just by city staff and us, but also by the general public. I think this is a very good, very appropriate compromise, and I'm very pleased that you were able to offer it.
Thank you.
Any questions for Lance at this time? If not, our city engineer has made the determination of a recommendation. If we are looking at a reduction, item 2 would be revise the connection fee calculation for this lot based on, I'm sorry, Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move option number 2.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Janser and by Alderman Janser, second by Alderman Pittner. And for those that are listening, that is revise the connection fee calculation for this lot based on 3.62 acres, the developable area, resulting in a connection fee of $16,072.80 versus the original $35,201.07. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Last call for discussion. We have a motion and a second to approve alternative number 2. Please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to number 7 on our agenda under personal appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to come forward and speak on any item that is or is not on our agenda. Just ask that if you do come forward, just state your name and city of residence, please.
Mr. Mayor and Minot City Council members, my name is David LeBrun. My wife and I own the property at 405 Railway Avenue Northeast. We do not live within the city limits. We live between here and Burlington. This property has been slated for involuntary acquisition for the flood control project. I'm here tonight to express my disappointment in how the city's employees have been handling the acquisition process. We received the first offer and a copy of the appraisal on September 23rd, 2020. The effective date of the appraisal is July 13th, 2020. That initial offer letter was stated by Mr. Zakian, and I quote, "If you disagree with the offer price for your property, you may submit a counteroffer or reply. It is suggested that you supply whatever documentation you have to support your counteroffer." The initial offer for the property was $505,000. After reviewing the appraisal in depth, I prepared a 6-page document explaining my conclusion that I felt the value should be $636,900. I used the same formulas and methodology of the initial appraisal, just using different comps that I felt were more in line with the building being appraised. I felt that the appraiser purposely picked out low-value buildings and property to use as comps. That is all clearly documented and in detail and was submitted to Mr. Zakian. On December 8th, 2020, I received a letter from Mr. Zakian rejecting my counteroffer of $636,900. In that letter, Mr. Zakian stated, "Pursuant to the Federal Universal Relocation Act, the city is required to purchase properties for flood control projects which reflect current market value and cannot consider any factors unrelated to appraisal professional standards in agreeing to a purchase price." So in his previous letter, he stated that I can supply documentation to support my counteroffer, and in this letter, he tells me that my documentation that I submit has no merit. He goes on to state, "I have reviewed the information you offered as support for your counteroffer. It is very well articulated and offers clear insight into the history of this business in the building on the property, but it does not provide any detail which results in any change to the city's view that its two-appraiser confirmation of 505 is the current market value." He then states that in the spirit of seeking an amicable purchase price agreement, the city increased its offer to $520,000. Being we're not making any headway in this matter, we made the decision to have another independent appraisal done on the property. The effective date of the new appraisal is March 3rd, 2021, and was done by Rasmussen Appraisal Consultants of Minot. This appraisal concluded that the property's current market value is $650,000. This appraisal was submitted to the city with a counteroffer of the $650,000. Mr. Zakian responded on June 2nd, 2021, stating, "It is recognized that this counteroffer is based on the appraisal you obtained, but nonetheless, the increase is certainly not conducive to reaching an amicable negotiated price. In a final effort to reach agreement prior to proceeding to court, the city increases its counteroffer to $535,000. We, of course, rejected that counteroffer, as it is $115,000 less than the current appraised value. As everyone here knows, the real estate market in Minot has greatly improved since the original appraisal was done almost a year ago. This new appraisal reflects current market conditions. If the city can find a 6,600 square foot building in Minot for $535,000, we will gladly consider this latest offer. In accordance with the city's negotiation process that we were provided a copy of, we have provided factual information and an appraisal to support our counteroffer of $650,000. Mr. Zakian, on the other hand, has rejected all of this information and would rather start the eminent domain process. Here are parts of the Universal Relocation Act that pertain to this situation. 24.102, paragraph A, the agency shall make every reasonable effort to acquire the real property expeditiously by negotiation. Paragraph F states, the agency shall make all reasonable efforts to contact the owner or the owner's representative and discuss its offer to purchase the property, including the basis for the offer of just compensation, and explain its acquisition policies and procedures, including its payment of incidental expenses in accordance with 24.106. The owner shall be given reasonable opportunity to consider the offer and present material which the owner believes is relevant to determining the value of the property and to suggest modification in the proposed terms and conditions of the purchase. The agency shall consider the owner's presentation. Paragraph G, updating offer of just compensation. If the information presented by the owner or a material change in the character or condition of the property indicates the need for new appraisal information, or if a significant delay has occurred since the time of the appraisal of the property, the agency shall have the appraisals updated or obtain a new appraisal. If the latest appraisal information indicates that a change in the purchase offer is warranted, the agency shall promptly reestablish just compensation and offer that amount to the owner in writing. Paragraph I is about administrative settlement. The purchase price for the property may exceed the amount offered as just compensation when reasonable efforts to negotiate an agreement at that amount have failed and an authorized agency official approves such administrative settlement as being reasonable, prudent, and in the public interest. When federal funds pay for or participate in acquisition costs, a written justification shall be prepared, which states that what available information, including trial risks, support such a settlement. In conclusion, I feel that there has been no negotiation in this process. Mr. Zakian refuses to consider any of the information that I have presented and has also flat out rejected the current appraisal. He has increased the city's offer a little each time, followed by the statement that the city has the right to apply eminent domain if we don't agree. To me, that is a bully tactic. Another thing I want to point out is that on the city's website, there's a list of names of people that comprise a buyout appeals committee. I called one of the people on the list, and he told me that he had retired and moved to Arizona over 3 years ago. I would like to know who the current members of this committee are and how I can meet with this committee. I would also like to know why the city is not reporting the sales price of buyout properties on the city assessor's website. All other real estate transactions are required to be reported and show up on this website so that anyone can see what property has sold for and who the buyers and sellers are. For most of the properties that have been acquired by the city, this information has been scrubbed from the assessor's website. The Souris River Joint Board publishes this information on the properties that they handle. So I would also like to know where I can go to review documents for other buyouts within the city. This should all be public record. I'm also disappointed that I did not get a response from the mayor or from any city council members to the email that I sent on June 9th concerning this matter. We would like to be able to keep our business here in Minot, but if we cannot get a fair market price for this property that we do not wish to sell, then we will have no choice but to relocate elsewhere. We do not feel that we should have to go another $100,000 to $200,000 in debt to move our business to a different location when we are perfectly happy with our current location. Thank you for your time, and can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Mr. LeBrun. I actually was just going to do a quick search on your email as I don't recall receiving one from you, so I do apologize if that one was missed.
Now, it could end up in your spam filter a lot of
It very well could be, so I do apologize. I'm normally pretty good about that. When it comes to a lot of the voluntary acquisitions that move to involuntary acquisitions and then to eminent domain, I know it's exceptionally difficult at all times, so I know it's nothing easy to go through. To answer your question about the appeals committee, that I'm a little surprised that it even shows up on the city's website, as that was dissolved back in 2018 because the federal, we essentially, when the city years ago started down the path of acquiring properties, comprised this appeals committee that was entirely unnecessary because it was up to essentially the director to make the final call on that anyway. So there is no appeals committee that works in that capacity anymore because it is entirely unnecessary. So I probably look to staff at some point to have that removed because it has not been in meeting since it was dissolved.
So our only resolution is to go to eminent domain and to go to court then?
There is the continued discussions that can happen through the process of voluntary acquisition. I'll be the first to say that because of the federal requirements through acquisition are very defined, I wouldn't call myself an expert or even a novice at this point, and I don't think anyone here at the dais could argue in either direction on that. However, we would be more than happy to get some more maybe clear answers on, I think, Mr. Zakian's direction on where his decisions are coming from in guidance with those with the offers. for you even this evening here if you'd be so inclined here in a moment. But the process does have to follow all of the federal guidelines for acquisition. We have to defend those to HUD if the National Disaster Resiliency dollars or CDBG dollars are used in anything outside of that guidance. If any of those dollars would be used that aren't in compliance, then it falls onto essentially the city of Minot and the taxpayers to pay back those dollars and potentially the grant dollars in whole if they're misused.
Yes. I feel that I've been following the procedures outlined. I've read that URA multiple times, and even on the city's negotiation process. I mean, we followed that to the letter, and I feel that all of that we have presented has just been shoved aside. They don't even look at it.
It's sometimes hard to defend, I think, an opinion on that, and I will just kind of use the paradigm that the process that we followed many times. You're not the first person that has come and actually cited that verbiage. The process that has been followed has a very substantial track record through the eminent domain process and coming back with the valuations that have been used under the guidelines of NDR and the acquisitions. And I'm not well-versed enough to cite all of those. Mr. Zakian is. So at one point, I've even attempted to read through that and have not come to the foregone conclusion that I could recite any of it.
See, all we're looking for is a fair market price for our property. And if, like I say, if someone can find me a property for $535,000 that is comparable to ours, we will gladly go that direction. But current market conditions have greatly changed, and according to federal guidelines, the appraisal needs to be updated to reflect current market conditions. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. And Mr. LeBrun, there really are two options at this point: continue to negotiate or choose to go through the eminent domain process. Some absolutely have gone through that process, and I would look to Mr. Zakian for maybe a little more clarification on some of the points that you've been following, just for clarification for council and for the general public's understanding.
Mayor, members of the council, first of all, one of the points he brought up, all sales are on the city website, more than 400. They're not under the city assessor. They are under, I'm looking, where's Lance? The website where we list like the GIS maps. Engineering. There is a section that lists all the properties. It's a whole component where you can search any property in Minot. There is a separate subset. It's under engineering, under GIS mapping. Every time we purchase a property, we put up a map showing where that property is. We connect it to a flood project, and we also list all the costs involved in that purchase price. So it's there. It's just not under the city assessor. I can offer some further insight. There is, and I know a number of you have heard me share, thank you. Our PIO hard at work, and there you are. You can check any one of these sites, click it. This is all the proposed flood projects, and it will connect to the properties we are acquiring. Those that we still need to acquire and those that we do acquire. I will tell you that it is one of the most robust of any CDBG DR. Forget about NDR, because there are hundreds of DR. It is one of the most robust public information sources that exist in the country. And we're continuing to try to update it. There is an anti-coercion clause in the URA. It is very clear we are not to negotiate in the public, and that works both ways. I can't be, certainly a citizen has the right to express their opinions, and I certainly respect that, but I cannot publicly negotiate with a property owner. That's not allowed under the Uniform Relocation Act. I will tell you that there are two parts to any acquisition, and what has been one of the biggest challenges for a lot of property owners is that they think they have to get the whole ball of wax, the entire cost, built into the purchase price agreement. That's not the case. There are two pieces. The primary piece is negotiating the purchase price, but there is a second piece, which is relocation costs. And every business has the right to certain relocation costs. And all the property owners are encouraged to meet with, as many times as they wish, on the relocation question. CDM Smith, they are readily available. They will provide you with the full range of options and rights that one has. And that has ultimately worked out really well. I have found that a lot of the properties where we have encountered what appeared to be an impasse in a purchase price agreement, once it sunk in or once it became realized that the additional funds that are available on the separate box, which is the relocation, and it all is tied to the needs of the business, the nature of the business, and what they're looking for as a comparable replacement. That can easily cover any cost that they, in their minds, believe they're not getting from the purchase price. So that's one core issue. The second issue is we are required to follow a process. The process is we not only use one independent appraiser, we use two independent appraisers. So every time a purchase price is established by the first independent appraiser, it is then reviewed by the second independent appraiser. And as an aside, it is bureaucracy, but it is the law. And this is why sometimes it takes us a while between when you authorize purchases and we actually make purchase price offers, because we have to follow through this process. If the second independent appraiser does not agree with the basis or other reasons for the initial value, then it has to go back and they have to agree upon a purchase price. Now, I can tell you that in the case of this particular property, both the initial appraiser and the second review appraiser agreed on the purchase price as reflecting current market value. Now, that is not to say that property owners, as been in the case in this one, cannot go out and get their own appraiser. But that does not mean that the city has to carte blanche accept that appraiser's value as being more accurate than the city's appraiser. In fact, it is important and incumbent upon me in representing this city and yourselves to make sure that there are no inconsistencies between what that appraiser is saying and what our appraiser is saying. And if I find that our appraiser missed something or was inaccurate in an assumption and it can be shown by the other appraisal, then I can, as was cited in the statute, I can order a new appraisal. However, if I find no discrepancies in basis, I'm sure you've all been through this. No two appraisers are going to agree on the value of a property. So that's why we go into the negotiations. And the last thing I want to emphasize here tonight is that even though authorization to proceed with eminent domain has been given, as has been in so many cases, the door remains open to negotiate. And I remain committed. In fact, rarely, even when you have authorized eminent domain cases, rarely do we ever go to the eminent domain price. It's just reserving the ultimate requirement of the city to acquire this property, but we leave the door open for negotiation. And all I will say is I'm waiting for a counteroffer. I have not received a counteroffer for my latest offer. In this particular case, if I receive a counteroffer, I will certainly weigh that and respond to it. Procedurally, I'd be glad to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, John. I know it's a significant amount of information to take in, and it's part of the federal process that has to be followed, given the funds. So look to any of the aldermen or alderwomen. Alderwoman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did chair the appeals committee for several years until we did dissolve it in 2018. So I have a little bit of familiarity with it. So one question that kind of piqued my interest was the time difference between the two appraisals, between the one that the city had done and the second one, does there need to be consistency with that time in order to do the negotiations, or how would that work?
Mayor Sitmer, Alderwoman Olson, that is a good question. Nothing is written in stone. As a general guide, HUD considers an appraisal to be of value for a year. So we're towards the end of that, but we're still within the window. That's not to say, again, if there was any substantial difference in the basis, if something was missed by our appraiser, then that would automatically trigger. But at this point, I have seen nothing. It's just that this appraiser says the value was here, and this appraiser says the value was here. But recall, I am going up. And that is an indication that I'm still open to negotiation. I can tell you that, just like any property owner is not going to accept our initial offer, nor should the city, because remember, this is taxpayers' money, nor should the city automatically accept an offer made by a property owner.
Thank you.
But again, in this case, as within all the cases, the door is still wide open for negotiations.
John, for clarification, as something you pointed out, and I want to maybe drive home a little harder, that point being that public negotiations don't fit within the federal guideline, and that's a difficult part. If I'm repeating exactly or paraphrasing what you said.
And Mayor, also along those lines, HUD does require, I know this can get frustrating, I almost exclusively communicate in writing, because that way there is no miscommunication, no misconstruing, no problem in misunderstanding what is being said. But in addition, HUD requires on every one of these acquisitions extensive documentation in terms of the entire process, and especially when the ultimate agreement is made, in making a justification document justifying the price that is finally agreed upon, and to show that it does meet market value, and we're not overpaying for a property.
Any other questions for Mr. Zakian? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And Mr. LeBrun, I would just maybe give the advice that I try to give to as many people that have questions about this or concerns, is continue to communicate with Mr. Zakian, with CDM Smith, the folks in whatever path that you are going to fruition.
Right. Well, I'll try, but I've sent tons of documentation, and Mr. Zakian just tosses it aside, because this is an initial 6-page document that I did the first time around, and I found many flaws in that first appraisal with the properties that he selected as comparables. There's actually no comparison to the properties, and each appraiser picks their own properties, and this appraiser has been working for the city for many years doing all these buyout appraisals, so I'm thinking that he just has a list of the low-end properties that he uses to start with to get that low-end price to keep the city happy. And like I say, this current appraisal, I've got, everybody can look at these if they want, and you tell me why there's such a difference and it's basically in the comparables that they have used. The Rasmussen appraisal used more current comps, and there's been sales since my appraisal was done. The 2 buildings they just tore down up by Menards there, one sold for $580,000, the other one sold for $585,000 just to be tore down. So you can't tell me that $535,000 for an extremely good building, a lot of it was new in 2012 with an addition, that it's not worth more than that. It doesn't make any sense. And if this, Alderman Potagurula talked about, the city driving people out of the business out of Minot. Well, this is one case where you're going to drive me right out of Minot if I cannot get a fair price. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBrun. Once again, this is an opportunity for public hearing, or public comment, rather, if anyone wants to come forward and speak on any item that is or is not on our agenda. Seeing none, we have moved into then miscellaneous and discussion items. Are there any items prior to moving into executive session for this evening? And actually, we do that after liaison reports. Any items from the council that need to be discussed prior to moving on to liaison reports? Okay. We'll move on to the liaison reports, number 9 then, and Alderman Patagula.
I have nothing to report.
Alderwoman Olson.
Mr. Mayor, a large part of my time has been spent on the City Hall Building Committee, and we've talked about that in great detail tonight, so that will continue. I did attend the Service-Based and Planning Council meeting last week, and about a week and a half ago, the County, City, School, and Park Board Liaison Committee met. Spent a lot of time discussing maybe a future high school coming to Minot, and we talked about the moving of the 911 dispatch center because that pertains to both the city and the county. So that would be my report.
Alderwoman Evans.
So the city manager included a really good synopsis of the library activities, but I want to point out one thing, the reading that's going on. We've had several city staff, including the mayor and I know fire chief, go and read to patrons of the library. So it's very much appreciated, and I've heard great feedback, and I know the library is going to continue to do that. So I would encourage city staff to go and read to our young people and their parents. Ward County Planning Commission, we really are in the final stretch of the total zoning rewrite for the county. We should be reviewing a final draft of that next month and hopefully moving it to public input and hearings across the county in the fall with hopefully a new zoning ordinance approved by the county commission by maybe 2022.
All right. Alderman Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Zoning Ordinance and Steering Committee met on June 9th, went over the first draft of the subdivision ordinance, and staff will continue to work on that as well as the committee will be working on that throughout the summer. And that is all I have to report.
Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended the City, County, School, Parks Liaison meeting. I think Alderman Olson gave a good summary of that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Janser. Alderman Pittner.
Mayor, nothing as the committees and boards that I sit on will be meeting this week.
Okay, thank you. Just one that I have to report from the Ward County Weed Board that we did meet this morning. Of course, as you can imagine, with the issues with moisture, it's a bugger of a time right now. Going out and actually having any effectiveness, whether it be within our river system or even just out in the county, state highways in controlling weeds, because if you don't have moisture, the chemical doesn't really soak up into there. So it's like anything. We need rain. I'll just put it that way. They did move out for anyone who is just wondering. Ward County Weed Board now is out at the County Highway building that is just to the north of the Dusk to Dawn gas station. So the old County Highway building moved out there. Very nice facility, and I think much more amenable to all of the growth that the County Highway Department has taken on. I also sit on the MAC EDC board. I will have more detail on that in my regular report at the top of the month, at our next regular meeting. Alderwoman Evans.
Liaison report, but it should have been under miscellaneous. And so this is the first meeting we've had since our retreat. And I just, want the public to know you're going to hear much more about the hard work that this governing body did during those 2 days. But it, in summary, was an incredible 2 days. I think some of the best use of taxpayer money I've seen in the past 12 months. We, I think, have a clear vision and strategy for moving forward. And I think we're all very excited to share sort of the hard work that we are doing and will continue to do with the public and everybody when, we get it all together.
Thank you, Alderwoman Evans. Definitely worth noting. Alderman Patagula.
In response to that, wouldn't be quite as rosy. But I think it was actually the best meeting I've attended in the 25 years on and off I've been involved in city government. What was particularly noteworthy to me was the level of frankness that the aldermen and women showed in talking with each other, and the very high level of communication, at least compared to what's gone on in the past, we had with city staff, many city staff, many department heads, and with the city manager. I see it as the start of a process. That's why I'm perhaps not quite so rosy, because I think this is something we'll have to go on and keep going on, indefinitely. But it really was a remarkable meeting, and I wanted to compliment Harold for bringing in these consultants. I, was a little leery, I guess, because of what happened last time. Consultants were brought in, and this is a very sensitive process. If it's not done well, if it's not done professionally, not only is it ineffective, but when it particularly comes to staff, can actually be counterproductive and blow up. So I think the staff will be doing their own process in parallel, which I think is very important. And again, I've never been involved in a better start of an ongoing process. I should add, too, not to be critical, Carrie. My standards are pretty high, so I think most people would be very optimistic. No. But I'm also leery always of one or two shot solutions to things. Processes like these, good governance, take time, they take effort on a continuing, ongoing basis. But this really was a remarkable meeting, and I think it sets the stage for more communication, more coordination, more working together among the 7 of us here, and between us and Harold and the staff. I've never been to a meeting where staff have been as frank in terms of giving us feedback and sharing some of their needs and concerns, which is a very, very important thing, particularly in terms of dealing with what happened previously. So I was just very, very impressed.
I do want to highlight one item before we move on to our final item of executive session. This coming Saturday is the 10th anniversary of the 2011 flood. The program that is going to be put on is highlighted as Resilient Together. There's going to be a full day of different events, activities, starting at 9 o'clock in Oak Park with a memory walk, walking through the lead up to the disaster, and also the resiliency that the community and communities have shown since that time. At noon, the main program is going to be starting in Oak Park at the amphitheater. Of course, we will have our former Mayor Zimbelman, our former Public Works Director, and others that will be joining us to memorialize the event. Mr. Hackett has been working on a video also to capture the resiliency from the disaster and leading up till now. And we will also have a panel discussion following that. There is going to be a bike from Burlington to Minot, as well as a fun run that leads to Oak Park in an effort to that also follow some of our flood control work, by the way, in an effort to bring the community together to memorialize and also acknowledge really how far we have had to come in these 10 years. So I'd hope that you would join me and along with a lot of other people. Understandably, it's the height of summer. There's a lot of things going on, but I think it will be something that will be very notable and worth attending. With that, we are moving on to number 10, which is the executive session. The next item, the agenda, is the executive session for the following pending legal matters: City of Minot versus Nathan Properties, LLC. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is the North Dakota Century Code sections. North Dakota Century Code sections 44-04-17.1, 4404-19.1, and 44-04-19.2. The topic or purpose of this executive session is to afford the City Council an opportunity to consult its attorney, discuss negotiation or settlement strategy, and/or provide negotiating instructions to its attorney regarding this pending litigation. At this time, a motion would be in order to discuss the next topic in executive session rather than in an open meeting. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderwoman Olson. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, motion is to enter into executive session. Please call the roll.
Olson?
Here.
Hittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yep.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion carried. The executive session will be recorded, and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussion during this executive session to only the announced topic. Any collective decision, collective commitment, or other final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes in an open meeting unless final action is specifically required by law to be taken during the executive session. The prohibition of taking final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instruction to our attorney or negotiator. We will ask the members of the general public who are attending the meeting to leave the room, and we anticipating adjourning the executive session and reconvening the open portion of the meeting at approximately 7:35. Let the minutes show that the executive session began at 7:13 p.m. and was attended by our city attorney, attorney providing legal guidance, Mr. Zakian, and members of staff, including the full city council, the city manager, the city clerk, our PIO, and Alderman Janser.